welcome to our first skill. Today, we're going to be building an invoice validator. Now, this is a really great first skill to build. We're going to walk through the process on reading a prompt, what important information exists in that prompt, how we're going to tell, in this case, Claude, how to build the skill. Again, we're going to give you the prompt. You can go to our website and download the prompt. But what's important is that you build the prompt for your specific use case. So we'll take a look at that. And then that will create the skill. And then we're going to actually run the skill on a couple of different examples. So again, this is our first skill. It's a great way to learn how to build skills. What is a skill? It is a blueprint or a recipe that we can call the same time every single time and expect the same outcome. Again, we're going to reference this skill, in this case, to validate this invoice. It's going to run through the skill and it's going to come out with the scorecard based on the rules that we have. Same time every single time. Work that used to be manual that we had to do every single day can now be done with AI. And this is a really great one. Actually, this is one that customers always come to me and say, look, I don't want to have to staff an entire billing team that does this manual check. I have, 20, 30, 50,000 invoices that go out every month. It would be impossible for me to have someone look at each one of these. This is the perfect skill for you. So let's take a look at this prompt. Don't be alarmed by the black background with the white text. I just copied and pasted that from a markdown file. If yours doesn't look like this, no problem. That is just fine. It's probably easier to read. But again, what we're showing you here is a prompt that we built. So it follows this very simple 4D prompt engineering process. We're going to deconstruct, we're going to diagnose, we're going to develop, and then we're going to deliver. So let's first deconstruct. Again, our invoice validator skill, just to define it, we're going to upload a invoice into this skill, and it's going to compare it to a register of our purchase orders, and it's going to verify if everything in that invoice matches. So that's what our invoice validator skill is going to do. So in here, we're going to talk about some of the key entities, this draft invoice, we're calling it the register, the customer accounts, it could be a CRM export, it could be an ERP export, and we're going to, in this case, ask Claude to serve as the senior billing operations specialist that is going to return any issues related to the invoice. We talk about these different gaps and constraints. Only one document is provided. Maybe over time, as you're more comfortable with skills, we can talk about uploading an entire stack of invoices. Right now, we're starting with just one. We're looking at missing invoices. We have this human judgment touch point. So in this case, there's a send hold decision. It's always human. But for now, we're just going to have this human touch point. And then when it comes to develop, again, look at the way we're doing this. Claude operates as a senior billing operations manager. They have 10 plus years of experience. Claude is informing this skill, or we as the prompt engineer are informing the skill to say, we want you to come with this expertise. Maybe you're in staff. If you are, let's be specific. There might be specific, or in fact, I'll argue there are many specific items around billing related to staffing. Let's make sure to include it in our prompt. We're talking about what could go wrong. The PO number could be an issue. There could be a pricing mismatch. There could be issues related to cost. Any sort of issues that we've seen before in invoices, the wrong date. There's a purchase order ceiling that we're about to go over. Any of those details, we need to let the skill know so it knows to look out for it. And so we're going through the steps. It's going to ingest the data. It's going to extract the fields. It's going to extract the account record fields. This is what we're comparing against. And then it's going to do this cross-reference. There's some logic on mismatch, unverifiable. Then it's going to generate this verdict. Is it a pass or is it a mismatch? And then it's going to reduce the report. And so you can imagine if you're validating an invoice, you're going to dump the invoice into, in this case, Claude. It's going to run the skill against the register of, purchase orders and ERP data that we're going to provide it. And it's going to return a check or an X, and it's going to explain why it's an X in the event that there's an issue. So imagine what that's going to look like at scale. Once we get this set up, every day there's 1,000 invoices. Well, hey, let's dump 1,000 in and let's get this skill to just pick out, the invoices that don't match. This is a great way to save time on a very tedious task. I highly encourage before sending, you go through all the details, but we've obviously done our work here. And so I'm going to click let's go, and we're going to take a pause. The skill is going to be built. So don't be surprised if it takes a little bit for the skill to be built. And then we're going to come back once the skill is built, and we're going to start diving in to actually using it. Now we've created the skill. We can see right here that we've built this invoice validation skill. Click on the skill. It's describing the skill. It's talking about the philosophy, the input requirements, right? We have this customer account record, the validation process, what it's going to do, the field reference, critical standard, output format. This skill, it basically has everything. You can imagine this skill as like if you were to build your own software product and you wanted to do an invoice validator and you wanted to live sort of just in like an Excel format, this skill is exactly that. You're going to reference this skill every single time. It's going to do the work just like a web app or a software application would do, and it's going to come out with the answer. But we don't have to build it. That's the best part. We just have to use natural language to describe it. Now, I just want to call this out. This is super important, but when we call this skill, we need to make sure that the skill is actually being initiated. We need to make sure that the skill is actually being called. And so if it's not, I'm going to show you where to do it. So we're going to come right here into customize. We're going to look at our skills, and we can see this invoice validator skill is there. Now, in the event that your skill is not there, you need to make sure to click on the skill right here. You need to show it in your folder, save that, and then or reference this location, and then come into customize, click on skill, click add, create skill, and upload that skill on the file. So again, in the event you don't see invoice validator right here, it's really important that you go through the process of downloading your skill, referencing the location of your skill. In this case, it's found right here, and then coming into customize, click on skill, click add, create skill, upload skill. That we need to make sure that our skill is referenced. In this case, Claude. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to bring in some of the data that we need, and we're going to run our skill for the first time. Okay, we now have loaded in this invoice validator project, referencing this invoice validation skill, an example invoice, and this customer master record. Okay, this is a doc file. It's like a Microsoft Word file. It might be an Excel file. It might be a CSV file. Don't worry. The skill is going to read all of that data, and it's going to do its best. If it has issues, we're going to talk about troubleshooting in a second. But for now, you can imagine just dumping in this PDF of an invoice, dumping in this Word doc or Excel doc file, and we're going to say, using our invoice validator skill, please validate the invoice. And we're going to click go. And I'm going to show just part of it, and then I'm going to pause and we're going to come back. But you can see right here, this is how you know it's working. We're seeing a running skill. It's reading the invoice. It's reading this customer master record. Okay. And then you can see right here, it's loading in this skill, which means it's referencing the skill that we've already built. That's beautiful. That's exactly what we want to see. And then we don't need to worry about the commands that it's running. It's doing its homework on the background. The good news is that our invoice validator skill worked. It took about 3 or 4 minutes to produce this report. The bad news is for this billing specialist is that we are held for corrections. So let's go in and take a look and see. It looks like there are 4 mismatches and 2 of them are critical. So let's dig in. We have hold conditions. It looks like the payment terms are ACH, but we need net 30. So this account is billed on net 30. And then look at this. This is great. So in this case, it's a liquor store or it's a liquor distributor. And we found out that their tiered pricing, which was pulled from that customer account, is actually off. So they're a tier 2 rate on this basil vodka and this tequila reposado. Okay. And they should be charged $38.75, but they're charged $40. And so this is like a perfect example of something that would likely get rejected, right? They were expecting, based on the purchase order, $7.82. It is $7.86. Now, are they going to care about the $4.50? Probably, right? Like these liquor stores, like their margins, they're very focused on them. But certainly at scale, if we're off by 50 basis points, that could be a really big deal. And so we definitely need to make an update here. Now we can see it's gone through this full field validation. So it's checking the customer name, ID. In this case, it has the license ID, all of the information. We have right here, this is the mismatch on the payment terms, but then this due date is off too. Now, this is a red flag for an invoice. If you don't see a due date, how can you expect your customer to pay on time? We want to make sure that the due date is present in this invoice. Maybe that means we have to go back into our invoice generation process and add a field or look at our system a little bit more. But this due date is not present. And then of course we go into these mismatches on pricing, which leads to a mismatch on total. And then we have these remittance instructions, which are unverifiable. Again, in your skill, maybe you say, hey, I don't need to include this in the invoice. Maybe you should. And, in this case, the skill is suggesting based on this billing rep for 10 plus years that we include this remittance instruction in billing contact. Either way, they've been flagged. We saw in just a couple of minutes, right? We built this skill and now we've uploaded this information. And like I said, in just a couple of minutes, we've been able to verify this account and we can update the invoice. And then when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what potential next steps might look like. Okay, now this is where I feel like Claude gets really cool. Or I'm going to say AI just in general gets really cool. We're able to find out very quickly using our skill that there are some mismatches. And so what is the process? Well, historically, it was someone had to go and update the invoice, go to the system of record, which of course we need to do. So now that we have our skill set up and we've caught that this invoice has some issues, what's next? Well, of course, we're going to want someone to go into the system of record, make those updates. In a later video, we can show how Claude and computer use can actually do some of that for us, which will be really great. But for now, let's assume that we have to get this invoice out today. There's a deadline and we don't have time to wait to update the record. Again, best practice, we should really update these records. But I want to illustrate how Claude can continue this process with the invoice mismatch. We're going to get it to fix this invoice. So I'm going to instruct Claude. I'm going to say, great, I want you to fix the critical issues with the invoice and create a new copy for me to send to my customer. Okay. Now, while this is loading, I should mention, this is not going to update our skill. Our skill is that recipe book, right? We're making the same recipe every time. And so the stuff that we're doing here, we have our output. It has a little bit of context. It's in the memory. We can see all this context, the record, the invoice, our output. It's all here. And we're going to, again, sort of freestyle. And so we can see right here, we need to change the term. We need to update the price. We need to add maybe a due date. We'll see if it does this too. And so we can see right here, it's pulling this other skill called the PDF skill. Now that should be included in Claude. You don't have to build a PDF skill. You don't have to set it up. It just knows how to read and edit PDF. So if for whatever reason you're not calling the PDF skill, that's something that, again, go into Claude or go into OpenAI or whichever tool you're using and ask some question. Hey, how can I pull the PDF skill? They'll have an answer quickly. And I'm actually going to pause here while this PDF skill updates our invoice. And when it's done, I'll come back and we'll take a look and see how it looks. And what do you know, just like that, only a couple seconds after I paused, the Silverline beverage invoice has been regenerated. And what do we see? Well, we see the date, 3/11, this added term right here. And so now we have some basis for when the invoice is due. Again, maybe we want to go back in and explicitly state that the due date is, in this case, April 10th. And then if we're looking at the pricing, we come in here and we can see, look, we're now referencing this 38.75 and this 7.90, right? If you recall, these are our tier 2 pricing. And so a process that would take the average, let's call it senior billing rep, several minutes to an hour on a per invoice basis, we've now got it down to a very repeatable process, something that can just take a moment or two, upload the invoice, go back, do your work, check, fix it. And again, what we want to encourage is starting with just one skill, making sure that it works, and thinking about layering or stacking skills on top of it. We talked about linking or chaining skills. So, hey, if this looks like, a critical error, let's move it for a human validator. If it looks like it's just a unverified error, something small, let's actually move that to shipment. And so we can talk about chaining these skills. Later on in the seminar or in future courses, we're going to be diving into routines. And so routines are a great way for once we have a skill or once we're building this repeatable process, we can then bring in things like sending emails. And so you can imagine that, hey, if this invoice is wrong and we need to make some changes, well, what if we automate an email to the sales rep that did the order entry to make the fix with details around the fix? So again, this is like the most powerful, in our humble opinion, the most powerful way to start to attack or start to address these manual tasks that you really don't want to hire people to do. Maybe you already have people doing it. They need more leverage. But in the AI era, you want to be thinking about using these AI skills to get leverage out of the administrative and mundane tasks. And so this wraps the invoice validator skill. Thank you for listening. And we're going to move on to the next skill.